Hey guys, welcome to the channel again. Those of you that have been following the channel for a few years realise that this is my third ski, my third PWC, and I think this is going to be the ultimate fishing machine. It's going to be very, very hard to do any better than this one. There's a lot of thought went into it. You know, I really wanted to make sure that covered all the bases on everything that I needed to do. So this video is going to go into the entire build, detailing all the decisions and I guess all the reasons that I chose certain products and how they're fitted to the ski. So please watch the entire video through, and then you'll understand the reasons why I've chosen certain products and also why they're placed in certain positions on the ski. So first up, why did I choose the Yamaha FXHO again? You know, there's other products in the market that'll do the job, as we all know. The Sea-Doo Fish Pro is certainly a very popular ski that's getting around there, and lots of my friends have got Sea-Doo Fish Pros. But look, I started on Yamaha, and I started with a VX about 7 years ago. I had 3 years on that trouble-free. I went to the 2019 FXHO trouble-free, 739 hours when I sold that one, and it's still going strong. So it's a pretty big ask to move away from the FXHO. It's a great platform, it's a stable platform, it's tough, and the motor is extremely reliable. My fishing's always offshore, so most of the time we'll have to go through some sort of bar crossing to get offshore. And you know, from the experience, the FXHO has just been great. I've never felt unsafe, even in larger surf. I've felt that I'm going to get it out there safely. You know, if I was just fishing in flat water, well, the options are going to be a lot wider. But the FXHO, great platform for offshore, cutting through the waves. The other reason the FXHO is quite good for fishing for me is that I can get the accessories that I wanted mounted on it through our local dealer. We have a very good dealer. You've seen me talk about Shoreline Yamaha before, and they're, I guess, our local Southeast Queensland fishing experts. So when I want to put a particular sounder or I want to get a particular rod holders or whatever, they can fit them to the ski for me. So if you're not from this area and you don't have a great local dealer, it's going to be difficult sometimes to get some of this done unless you're very handy yourself. In Australia, there is, of course, the Jetfish version of the FXHO, which is pretty much the same ski. It's got a 6-inch Garmin sounder. It comes with the ability to have a rear cooler. There's a rec deck, which is where you mount the cooler on, and it's a great package for those who don't have that, I guess, the comfort of having a local dealer that can do all the fitting for them. The Jetfish is the same ski as this, so what you see I'm doing, the Jetfish will do exactly the same thing. As with any ski, they've got positives and negatives. Nothing's perfect when you get it from a factory. You certainly can do modifications as well to both skis to get it to your tastes. All right, so what's new with the 23 FXHO from Yamaha? Well, colour scheme. That's about it, I guess. No, there's a couple of other things. One thing that I was quite surprised is this one has actually got a sound system built in. It has the Connect system, Yamaha Connect system, which is a new LED dashboard, which has Bluetooth capabilities to connect to your phone. The music can be pumping out via Bluetooth. You can also take calls hands-free through the system as well. The Connect system also has a GPS capability, and you can buy maps to load them into this screen system. But if you're a fisherman, you've got a Garmin or a Lowrance or some other brand sounder, you're going to have maps on there, and there's no need to double up. The screen on the visibility is a little bit further away from you, so certainly I wouldn't use it for fishing. What have I added? Let's start under the hood. I had a auxiliary fuel tank in my last ski, and I did use it quite often. And some of our trips are in the 100-kilometre plus type days, and it's really nice to have that comfort of having extra fuel. So quite often I would actually put between 15 and 30 litres in that extra tank. It was a 30-litre tank, and it was also great because on the Yamaha they have a warning buzzer that goes off quite often when you're travelling back to shore. It's supposed to go off really early to sort of warn you that you're running out of fuel, but it can get damn annoying. So having that extra fuel is great because it also meant that it's very rare that I had to put up with the beeping every 5 minutes. So What I've done this time, however, is I've actually gone with a 40 litre tank. So it's just given me a little bit more range. There's a couple of times when we've gone quite wide and I've just thought, I don't really want to go to that spot because I don't know if I'm going to run out of fuel or not. So that extra 10 litres is going to give me a lot of comfort. And it's mounted in exactly the same position as the previous tank over the 70 litre standard tank. It has a little section coming out to the side, almost like a L shape the tank ends up being, and that's the extra 10 litres of fuel. So 40 litres plus the standard tank gives me a very good range. So I've also gone with the dual battery system again, and like the last one, it had a A/B switch, so I could switch between batteries to choose what's the running battery on the day. Like the old one, I also have the VSR, the voltage sense relay. What the VSR does is charge the running battery, and when it senses that the battery is capacity, it will actually switch and charge your battery that's not running. So what I tend to do is just run it on one battery, one trip. The next trip I'll switch it over to the other battery. By having an A/B switch, I can also age the batteries so that both of them are going to get equal wear. And should one fail, I can easily switch over the other one and not ruin my whole day. So I think it's the best way of going. Some people say, well, why don't you just put a bigger single battery in these things? And the issue is, for me, is if the battery fails, it fails and I'm basically dead in the water. And yes, you can carry a jump starter. In fact, I still carry a jump starter. And as a matter of fact, I've used it, but I've actually used it on other people's skis. That's another story. But the idea here is that I could get to the ramp on a cold morning and, it could be 2 or 3 years down the track and one of my batteries is dead and won't start. It just won't crank the engine, and I could easily switch over to the other battery, and there's a good chance that you're going to have a good day still. You're not ruin your whole day. If you have one battery, yes, you've got a jump starter to get you out of trouble, but you're not going to spend that day in the water. So it's more likely to happen when you're going to start up that ski in the morning in the cold, bitter winter morning. That's when the battery is more likely to fail, and before you go out. So could you imagine having to jump start your ski all day? I can't. I think it's hard enough doing it once because you actually have to put jumper terminals on your battery, and it's very deep in the hole on these skis. So I can imagine doing it once to get yourself out of trouble, but I'm not going to spend all day starting and stopping and using the jump starter. A toe tap is as it says, a tap or a valve which blocks off water going into the engine. So all jet skis take water into the engine for cooling. Now even the Sea-Doo, which has what they call a closed loop system where it uses coolant to cool the engine, it still takes seawater into the exhaust to keep that cool. Whereas Yamaha and Kawasaki take it into the engine as well, and it pumps it out again. The same as 99% of boats, they all cool their engines by taking in seawater. The problem with a jet ski is that should you break down, maybe you run out of fuel and you need to be towed back to shore, the issue is that water can be forced into the engine under tow, and you're basically stuck with having to tow at less than, I think it's 8 knots, might even be less, if you don't have a tow tap installed. And all the local volunteer marine rescues in this country recommend that jet ski riders put a tow tap into their system, or at least carry some sort of pipe clamp, which will effectively do the same thing, a pipe clamp. And of course, you want to know how to use that and which pipes you need to clamp off, of course. Navigation lights. I put navigation lights again on this ski, and of course you've probably seen my previous videos where 99% of the time I'm actually leaving shore before light, and of course in this state we're allowed to do that, but we do have to have legally mounted navigation lights. So my navigation lights at the front are your usual port and starboard lights. They're mounted on the ski permanently, and they're wired to a waterproof switch on the dash. And they actually bypass the Yamaha's electric system, so they're independently controlled. On the rear, having a light sticking up is a bit of a pain for fishing, so I prefer to have a removable light that I can stow during the day. As soon as the light's up and I don't have to use nav lights, I switch them off and I stow the white lights. So I use a Railblaza all-round white light for the rear, and I use a PVC pipe to give me the elevation that's required by law of 1 metre above the red and green lights, and I put them in the rear rod holder, one of those in the rear of the tubbies there. Now check your local state regulations, because many states around the world, including New South Wales and Australia, do not let PWCs between dusk and dawn. That means the sun has to be poking up over the horizon before you're allowed out. So I've also installed a marine VHF radio again, and I have gone back with the GME GX750. Sort of talked into it. I was looking at something a bit more expensive because I've had a little bit of unreliability on the previous installation. However, after talking to Shoreline about it, we think we've sort of resolved positioning so that it keeps the water off it as much as possible. And certainly having the handset mounted in the glove box and never getting actually water on it is a big start, but also the position of the little black box, the actual electronics where it connects to the aerial, is tucked under the dashboard here and doesn't get a lot of water on it, and we're going to sort of keep an eye on it and just see how it goes. The aerial is mounted on the deck of the ski, and because of the speakers there wasn't a lot of room, but Shoreline made up an aluminium bracket and it fits nice and neatly between the speaker and the fuel filler cap, and it's doing the job beautifully. And I can fold this aerial right down so I can get into my garage, and certainly when I'm traveling I fold it down just to make sure I don't hit any trees. Something that you saw on my last ski was seat covers. Now, why would you need a seat cover on a jet ski? Well, initially the idea was to protect the seat from hooks and knives and sharp objects. Fish spikes are terrible. They tend to scratch the Duco on the ski, and quite easily they could pierce through your seat. So that was the idea, was to have something to protect it. But of course, anything that covers it could also cause a bit of a problem with mildew and things. In my travels, I noticed that motorbike seats in Asia were using this mesh material, and I looked up, and sure enough there was a supplier in Australia, and we did a prototype for a jet ski seat. It worked perfectly, and now we sell those on the Jetcast website. One of the unexpected benefits was that the mesh is around about 8 mil thick, and actually creates another cushioning effect on top of your seat, so it's actually more comfortable. And I found that I could actually take the bumps a lot better when I'm seated on the ski. So the other positive that came out of it is that a friend of mine was complaining about heat from his Fish Pro engine bay coming up through the seat, and he said it was quite hot sometimes, and he had to move around on the seat to keep his bottom from being burnt, he reckoned. And what we did is we got a set of covers made up for fitout. He tried them out, and it's working beautifully for him as well. And likewise, he really noticed the difference in the comfort. The extra cushioning has been, a major benefit. I wanted to get a better sounder this time. The sizing was good. I had a 9-inch Garmin 95 UHD on the last ski. The size was perfect. Sounding's pretty damn good. But one of the features that I wanted was to be able to handle the deeper water. We tend to be sort of fishing in 90 metres or so quite a bit, and in smooth conditions it was pretty good, but when it got rough it was pretty hard to pick out fish on a 95 in that sort of depth. So I wanted to go to a bigger or more powerful transducer, and I had to go to the next model up of sounders, and I've actually got a Garmin 953 XSV. And look, one of the unexpected benefits as well is the fact that I can actually record the screen now. And the previous models, although they could record the screen, it's almost impossible to get that video file into a computer. So with the 953, it actually sends the video directly to the Active Captain app, which will be running on my mobile phone, and records in 1280 by 720, great resolution for video, and that means when I want to show you something in future videos, I'll be able to record the screen. I've got a nice Rustler custom-made cover for this. It completely wraps around the sounder, and it's going to keep the majority of the water off the unit completely. Now the transducer is mounted on the rear again, on the rear left. Now the other option, of course, is to use a belly mount, something on the ride plate. I really think that's probably a great option. However, I'm a little bit concerned when I've had two friends who've done that and actually had them ripped off by running aground. So we do tend to have some very shallow estuaries, and sometimes you just happen to misjudge it in the dark, and you might end up in a very shallow bit of ground. So if you're belly mounting, be very careful about where you're riding. If you want the best sounding, that's got to be better, because the in the belly, it'll be actually further forward away from the wash of the jet. So, I do get jet wash sometimes on my ski. As long as I've got a little bit of forward momentum, could just be in idle, I normally have a clear signal and I don't get any wash onto my transducer. The transducer that's matched to the Garmin 953 is the GT51. So it's I believe it's 600 watts versus 350, which comes with the Garmin 95 UHD, the GT56. So during the summer months, I do a bit of trolling, and I like to troll at reasonably high speed with those Halco shallow divers. And I found that having rod holders in front of the eye line is way better than having them at the back. There's two reasons for that. One of the reasons is it's quite difficult to turn around all the time to see what's going on. And the other thing is when you actually go to grab the rod off the rod holder when you do have a fish on, it's really hard to turn around, grab that rod that's quite a fair way back and then fight that fish while trying to keep the ski going in a straight line. So these ones at the front, a little bit different design on this particular model. One on the left, one on the right. The one on the left also doubles as the platform for the sounder. The one on the right gives me a flat base where I can actually put the GoPro mount as well. And the one on the right also keeps the cup holder, so I actually have a cup holder again. Of course, tubbies. The other accessory, of course, I couldn't do without is my tubbies. Great for storage, great for extra stability, safety, everything. The live bait tank, you've seen this before. Look, if I had $1 for everybody that asked me from the US, where can they buy some tubbies, I think I'd be a millionaire now. Literally every week somebody asks me where they can get the tubbies from, and we're very fortunate in southeast Queensland to have Shoreline Yamaha. Patrick O'Keefe, the original designer of the Shoreline Tubbies in South Africa, when he sold his business and came to Australia, he's still importing the tubbies, and we are lucky to have them in our neck of the woods here. I'm seeing a lot of people that are buying their new skis coming up to Shoreline and getting the whole package put together by Patrick, and that's testament to the fact that he does build a damn good fishing ski. On the tubbies, you'll notice there's two yellow bottles. Now, the one on my right-hand shoulder is a live bait tank. Yamahas have a visibility spout. You'll see that big rooster tail of water coming out. That's just a bit of a trademark of Yamaha, but what we do with these fishing machines is disconnect that water spout line, and using the water scoop, which is still, of course, there in the jet wash, is plumbed into the low bait tank. So as soon as you've got any sort of engine power, there's a bit of water running it. It's pushing water into your live bait tank. And there's a valve for the live bait tank, of course, so you can turn it off when you don't want water in there. It does add 20 plus litres of water. It does add a little bit of weight on your ski. So if you're not using it for fishing, then you can block that off and it keeps it empty for you. Now on the other side is a sealed bottle. It's the same bottle basically, but it's a storage bottle. It's also a bit of a flotation aid if you get into distress, if you sink, God forbid, if you sink or something. But you can disconnect that, and it's like a flotation aid. But I use that to store my statutory safety equipment, the V sheet and the flares. I also have a jump starter in there that I said. The jump starter is actually in a little waterproof bag just to give it a bit of extra protection from the environment, and other bits and pieces and things that could go in there, whatever you want to fit. I think I've got a very small first aid kit as well in there. So why didn't I get a trolling motor? You know what? It's just the money. They're very expensive, and for the benefit I think I'd get out of it, I just couldn't see the value in it. By the time you get the spot lock version of the trolling motor, a mount, and lithium batteries, enough to give you, 4 hours of work, you're probably looking at not much change out of 5,000 Australian dollars, about $3,000 to $3,500 US dollars. So it's a big investment for the need. So if you're working in flat water estuaries all the time, it'd be really nice to be able to sit on a spot or plot a course and let it, take you back over that track each time. But when I'm fishing offshore, there's always a bit of a current, and that current means that even if you are spot locked over a section of reef, your lines are going to go out. You still will need to reposition or wind your lines back in each time. So I don't know, I've talked to some friends who've got the trolling motor, and One of them suggested that for offshore, don't do it. The other one thinks it's great. So it's a personal choice, and I think at the time, the amount of money that's involved, I just couldn't justify it. If I'm dropping something in deep water, I'll actually keep the engine running, and you'll see me going around in circles slowly, and what I'm actually doing is circling over the line to keep that line as vertical as possible, and I'm keeping in touch with it, and I know when it hits the bottom as well, because it's straight down. I know when it's got to the bottom, instead of it being somewhere up in mid-water column and not knowing while I'm drifting. I know it gets there. So that's my solution for not having a trolling motor. Sure, it puts hours on your engine, but again, it's idle. Engine hours at idle, it's not doing it any harm. My last ski I sold at 739 hours, it was still running beautifully. The funny thing is, stepping onto this one, I haven't noticed a lot of difference in potentially the engine performance since I've got this ski versus the one that had 739 hours on it. Some of you watching this has probably noticed this weird black handle hanging off my right-hand side tubby. What that is actually a Railblaza Live Pole. The idea is you can put a live scope transducer and point it. I'm not actually using the live scope transducer. What I'm actually doing is putting a GoPro on that. My idea was to be able to capture what's going on below the ski as a fish is coming to the surface. I get the odd shark, I get dolphins hanging around, I get some nice fish swimming under the boat. I might be filming a mate's catch, such as a marlin, which I've done in the past, and being able to put a camera under the ski and point it with this live scope pole is going to hopefully give me some better and more interesting content. So there you go, guys. Thank you for watching this video through, those of you that could. And now I hope you understand too the reasons why I've done what I've done on this particular fishing ski. And let me know in the comments below what you think about it, what I should have done differently. Happy to listen. There's always the next ski, isn't there? All right, well, thank you again. See you next time.